Hi y'all, Freeze Correct here. Yeah, I haven't published much in the way of videos lately because every video I do I'm like, oh, I talk too much and that's stupid. But I thought I'd jump around with a couple of issues and talk about things. You know, this is kind of like for some new nappers. When I see new nappers trying to do direct percussion, I thought about something that I haven't mentioned before. You know, when a lot of people that are new in direct percussion, they're nervous. Well, when you get nervous, what happens is you get that fight or flight reaction going, your gross motor skills take over, and your fine motor skills go hide somewhere until you're not nervous anymore. And what I've seen people with a death grip on a bopper, and bam, and they're hitting, and they tend to overstrike. And they know they're gonna maybe overstrike and catch too much of it and fold it, and so they're worried about that. So sometimes they'll go at it at the last second, try and pull back, and they're kind of doing this number like they're hoeing or something. But the other thing is that the death grip on the bopper combined with a full swing in the air takes away the fine control. So I thought I'd mention that. And what I do is I assume that the reason I'm paying good money for lead-filled boppers is to let the front end, the weighted end of the thing, do the work. And I don't hold way back on the back or anything like that. I hold, you know, fairly far up, but it's almost like I'm flicking a little bit, and I'm using my wrist a little bit, because you know, when you use like these three fingers mainly and support with that one or whatever, that's where your fine motor control is still there. And so then the other thing that I do is proportionally I use a heavier billet than most people would for any given situation. Now, I do realize and recognize when I need to step down, because if I use too heavy a billet, when I need to do a light, fast strike for some reason, like the material prefers quickness. Well, if I be bonking it with a big old slow, heavy thing when it needs quickness, then I'm going to be battering platforms and that kind of crap. So I don't do that. But all other things being equal, this flake right here, there's a little bit, not really a ridge, but a little bit of something, a little bit there. Most people would hit that with, say, a 1-inch bopper or something like that. They'd hit it with something about like that. I, on the other hand, will hit it slower. I'll support the back edge and hit it slower, catching it with a corner of that. There's a platform there, right in through there. And you say, well, why am I doing that? Why would I use that instead of the smaller bopper? Well, number one, for me, I feel like my accuracy is enhanced if I go with a little bit bigger, slower thing, because a slower swing, I mean, I can swing accurately. And I can take little bitty old blender flakes and stuff like that with this. So there's that aspect of it. But then the other thing is getting the length of your swing correct and the angle of your swing correct. One of the other things I've seen people doing that are somewhat new to the game is moving their work with the other hand through anticipation of the hit. So they'll go to swing and they'll be coming down with this, and all of a sudden this thing turns upward to meet it. Well, you know, two objects in motion is like trying to shoot down aerial stuff with aerial stuff. It becomes that much more complicated. Can it be done? Yes, it can. Can you do it? Probably not. I've only ever seen about 2 people that tend to do that a lot, and both of them were gifted with naturally very accurate eye. What I try and do is I try and keep, now if I'm just doing the initial edging on something, yeah, whatever. But I try and keep my work stationary and don't move it. Now this will turn to that side, pretty blocky there, so I gotta be careful. But I try and keep it stationary and don't change anything. So then you get, well, how do you not overstrike or strike too thin? Overstrike is catching too much of it. Too thin means you just barely caught it. Well, what I do is, number one, I recognize that if I use enough mass, I don't have to be swinging for the fences. I do work some of that super tough raw material that I do have to, in the air, swing for the fences, but most people don't even work that kind of stuff, so it's not needed. So I can do everything mainly with just my forearm and wrist. So then how do I do it? Well, what I do is I get it lined up. I get this rigid, back edge support, and then I tap it usually with my billet, and when I tap and push in, I can feel if it tries to turn downward or if it tries to turn upward. That's a little check of my angle right there, because when I tap it first in, I want to feel that it's pushing straight back into my hand, which means it's almost a perfectly flat angle, if that's what I'm going for. If I want to bevel downward, I've got to get it in air or something, or hold it with my hand, turn it downward and stuff to do that, to get a shorter flake. Do a blender right there. That was more than a blender, but you know what I mean. This shouldn't be hit. You know, when you turn your edges and raise up the edges from a previous series to get rid of the deltas, every once in a while you have a hanger down delta that just kind of curved down like that, and that's pointy and down. Number one, if I wanted to hit that much, the platform would fail. That's in the way, and it's not ground right and all that kind of crap. But number two, when you hit stuff that low, it tends to start hinging down and kick up, and you'll get a hinge. Can you knock it off? Yeah, very carefully in the air. Just catch the edge of it, hit it thin, and hit straight down, and it'll feather. But you know, wasn't set up and not okay to hit as a regular hit. When you still got this much width, what you can do is you can just go ahead, and instead of taking shots all the way across town at stuff, you can do weird crap to just get rid of that messed up edge. Like, I'm just going to turn this upside down, hit straight down, and wrap that in there, and that got rid of a lot of it. So now, see, it's actually hittable. That's that same thing that I just took that little, and when I took that little downward unsupported blender off of it, I flattened that out. It was a little point. Now it's flat, and it's still low, but you know, you can come in with it and do something. I'm rambling. That I was going across a little ridge there to get rid of it. Actually, I ought to do something turning this square edge. I already did some stuff here, and I've done blenders after it. It was big hits into there, but one of the things I've shown too much of is doing thinning whilst a piece is still too big, and not getting things under control early on, and then just keeping them under control and doing thinning. I call that phasing or staging or whatever. There's different ways to do stuff. I do a lot of my stuff as management by crisis. Square edge. I'm hitting it upside down in case you didn't notice. But I'm kind of pulling almost backward to wrap that. Different people do things different ways. And I guess it's almost like you were talking about baseball pitchers. Sometimes you go with your best pitch as opposed to going for the hitter's weakness. So depending upon what you're good at with your napping, different people have different approaches to the phasing of the reduction and to how they go about it. I use abraders a lot. Some people use their bopper a lot to turn edges and do stuff, or some people actually will sit there and pressure flake, which to me falls under the category of life's too short, but it's effective. I mean, you know, it's a good technique. Still haven't mentioned what I wanted to finish mentioning though. Cleaning things up. This little test hitting stuff, right next to the platform, that's getting ready, and that's kind of getting, it's like cat wiggling its butt when it's fixing to leap on you and claw your eyes out, you know. Something about your muscles, it's like tennis players shifting back and forth on either leg. It's something about your muscles, when you get your muscles going and ready, they're just ready. So there's that. But the other thing is, I usually have the back end of this elbow resting on my leg. And I don't tend to move it much. Now when I'm hitting the air, yeah, it's up. And that's a whole more complicated thing, but it works better for me a lot of times to hit in the air when I need to free swing and swing hard, because then I'm unhindered by stuff. But anyway, what I'll do with my arm on my leg there is, once I tap on it and decide where I want to hit, well, it's kind of locked in at that point. I tap there, and so I'm just barely reaching. I mean, I'm just changing my swing about that much outward to catch where I want to on the platform. So I'm already set up to hit my spot. Trying to think what else I wanted to say about all that. Oh, the nervousness factor. It's a big deal. It's a big deal because it's just the way nature makes you, is that your motor skills suck when you're nervous, for the most part. Now, some people don't get very nervous, so their motor skills aren't affected. But the way to make the nervousness go away is to just hit more and get to where you're competent and know you're competent and feel okay about it. But you still have that crap at nap ins where everybody's trying to pretend they're not looking at what everybody else is doing, and everybody is worried about everybody's looking at what they're doing, and there is some of that occurs. In a way, it can be very amusing. But in a way, you know, you sort of feel for people if they're new and they're sitting in your circle and they're worried about smacking a preform in half in front of you, you know. If you're ever in my circle, just remember this. I didn't buy your rock, so it don't matter to me if you break it. I'm kidding, it matters. Ooh, I just hit on the end and I didn't support it right and I didn't break it. You know why? I hit at the right angle. And that was another thing I want to mention. Somebody asked me online, like, okay, you know, how do I deal with cracks? Like, very carefully. The thing with cracks is the same thing with in shock or in snap. I'm going to hit this. I'm going to hit 2, actually. That's in the way. Hang on. Where's my little bopper that I said don't use? Here it is. I'm just knocking off a little bump there so I can hit on this back the other way. By the way, on this stuff that's got lime in it, you know, white flints, the tensile strength, edge quality, platform stuff, it's not, you know, it ain't Knife River. I mean, sometimes Knife River isn't even Knife River. I should show you this piece of Knife River someone sent me. I'm gonna do that in a second. Anyway, what was I doing? Oh, I'm gonna hit on the end there and there. And you're like, what? Are you crazy? Yes. All right, watch. I'm holding way down here. I'm not supporting it. It's gonna be funny if this blows up. Big old hit. Bam! Why didn't it break? Well, the reason it didn't break is because there was no downward force on it. It was supported underneath so it couldn't fold down. And I hit it at the right conchoidal fracture angle to where, you know, I'm swinging like this, the angle's coming off conchoidal fracture, and it's the right angle to run along here so it doesn't break. Now, that's the secret right there. That's it. If you want to quit breaking stuff, quit hitting downward and shocking crap and start hitting across it where it's 5 inches or 4 inches of flint instead of a ½ inch of flint or 1 inch flint or whatever. Okay, let's hit this one too. I'm funny. It's Monday, but it feels like Sunday. Instead, I want to regrind. You know why? I didn't hit it, so I don't need to regrind. But it's kind of like it's like a batter playing baseball. How they get up there and they adjust their straps on their gloves and everything like that. And the tennis players, they play with the strings and everything. Does anyone really think playing with their strings helps? Platform fell a little bit. Limey stuff. Plus there was that, whatchamacallit, little seam crack thing that runs right through there, right up to that platform. That is not my fault, beloved viewers. I'm going to hit along there just to try and get even with this rock. So I did. Alright, so we've gotten even with the rock. Now you may notice, I think I'm going to show you a good lesson here. I got a bunch of thickness in here. I got a platform set up to address some of it. Thickness in there. I'm not going to do it right now. You know why? Well, I'm not through thinning the ends and getting the contours like I want them or anything like that. So I'm just going to leave that, save that thickness and safety while I do some other crap first. All right. What was there was something else I was going to say. How many minutes has it been? I can't even tell. I'm going to come right back.